This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Jason Brewer, CEO of Marula Mining, following lots of news releases from the company in the last few days. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Mark. Very well here.
Well, thank you for joining us. Looks like a very beautiful day over in Kenya over there. So thank you for giving us your time. First of all, let's talk about Nyori then. So you've completed the commencement. You've started phase one exploration. So give us the high level of what's going on.
Sure. Just the other week, we had a bit of an exploration workshop here in Nairobi. Okay. Representatives from London, from Tanzania, and from QGC down in South Africa. And as part of that, we basically mapped out our exploration activities in Tanzania for the next 12 months. And the first phase of that was getting work going at Nyori, our graphite projects there. So both the Nyori and Nyori Green licenses, which are 20 granted mining licenses, and where we have seen some very high-grade jumbo flake graphite mineralization. So Geofields, our independent consultants out of Tanzania, literally got up on site last week, literally 24 hours after our meetings there in Nairobi, and have commenced a very large-scale mapping, sampling program, trenching program over those licenses, which will really help give us the basis to move forward in the rest of 2024.
Okay, so you've completed the mapping, trenching and sampling. So how are you set then? You've talked about getting the plans ready over the next 12 months. What are they going to look like throughout 2024, do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Nyori graphite licenses are something which when we went there, they actually caught us by surprise. It was almost, it was running in a bronze. It wasn't even in a metal position. It was getting close to a bronze in terms of the pecking order with our projects. But when we got there and we saw the mineralization and we saw that local miners were actually selling it as a DSO product into India, it really got us excited, obviously. So, we've got this big sampling mapping program taking place. Immediately after that, we'll be looking at moving into a very big large-scale trenching program and a diamond drilling program there as well. So The idea is over 2024 to move those projects towards development in that second half of 2024. So that's something which we're quite excited about for sure.
Okay. So diamond drilling and trenching work with the objective to, what is it? Get into production, get a resource going?
We'll do pretty much what we've been doing at Blesberg and our strategy at Kanusi. We're going to get started with some small scale production in parallel with that kind of very widespread, systematic exploration. So mapping, sampling, geophysics work, trenching, and then that diamond drilling to basically establish an initial JORC compliant resource upon which we can then kind of build and base a larger scale open pit mining operation with the associated processing facilities.
Great. Okay. So doing the very similar thing to what you've done over at Blesberg, which we'll talk about in a moment. In terms of actually funding all of this, that's all taken care of, is it, by, of course, QGC?
Absolutely. One of the agreed tranches of funding out of QGC was specifically for the graphite up there. And following a visit earlier this year by QGC's technical team and geologists, like us, they got very excited. So Nyori was something they're very keen to get moving. They saw the very shallow, high-grade mineralization and, they want to see that monetized. They want to see cash flow coming from that.
Well, nimble, quick and flexible are some of the key things I picked up from talking to Quintin when he was over in London, and it certainly seems like that is the case when you look to Blesberg here. So what's the latest? I know you've got some sorters en route, haven't you?
Yeah, Blesberg's, it's clearly the company's principal focus, and it's our principal focus for a reason, because it's got the makings of a very significant cash flow generative asset. So last week in Johannesburg, we completed the factory accepting testing for the Rados XRF ore sorter, which is one of two ore sorters that form part of the expanded processing facilities there at Blesberg. That will essentially sort the pegmatite from the host rock, from the feldspars, from the quartz, and from the mica, which is the run-of-mine feed that's going to go into a crushing circuit, then through both a TOMRA and a Rados XRF. So last week, ahead of schedule, of course, we were able to complete the factory testing there to make sure that the design and the construction of that met our specifications. It's met that now. So that is to be on site and commissioned by the middle of, over the course of December, but we're expecting it on site in the next few days, actually. So there's the civils work, the concrete works, all of that has been done. So basically we're just waiting for that to get to site, and then we will have our recently appointed processing consultants, a group called Erudite out of Johannesburg, on site to oversee the management and the commissioning of that piece of equipment. So very positive there for Blesberg in terms of its new expanded processing capacity.
Indeed. So that's the Rados XRF. You've got the TOMRA as well. Is that later coming, or? Yeah,
that's coming. So we're commenced testing there in Mpumalanga, just outside of Johannesburg, where it's at. There was a need to do some refurbishment work to that. So we've had some material which is being transported to that unit. The compressor there was just being tested. So the intention is to complete on-site testing there of that equipment, and to have that then transported to site and commissioned in early January.
Okay, early Jan. Okay. Well, how will the holiday season at all affect the commissioning of these two sorters, do you think? If it's going to, the first one's arriving in December, you want to get it commissioned and operating before Christmas?
The intention is very much to get the Rados unit installed and basically commissioned. You got plenty of material there in the stockpiles. Sure. At the end of the last quarter, we reported almost 40,000 tons of stockpile material. So we've got material that we can use to commission it on, that we can use to test it on. And of course, material has already been used to test its efficiencies and its recoveries, etc., and the yields that you get from it. So the intention is very much to have that ready over the Christmas period. We have the crushing and screening as well to go in parallel with that, such that as we move into the new year and the TOMRA plant is then on site and commissioned, that times up very well with the commencement of the large-scale open pit mining operations that we've got scheduled to also commence at Blesberg.
Okay. And you appointed a COO recently as well, so a man on the ground. Is that what's his responsibilities going to be?
Yeah, look, Martin Westerman, I've known him for almost 15 years now. We've worked together in various other opportunities, other projects, other mines. He's actually been working with us on a consultancy basis since July. So he understands the business. He's been assisting me massively in, for instance, in some of the processes for the dual listings that we're progressing. Okay. He actually drove from Pretoria to site yesterday. Took him all day. That in itself is an indication of the sort of person he's at. No, he's got responsibility to ensure that all our operations, be they in Southern Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, basically are up and operating efficiently in accordance with all the necessary regulatory requirements, meeting the highest standards in terms of ESG, corporate social responsibility, but essentially being a very good number two to me and carrying a lot of the weight which is necessary to deliver all these projects. As you know, Marula's got half a dozen projects, different jurisdictions, and we need a good team around us. He's come on. He's replacing Tokus van Heerden, another very good person we had involved in the company. He's resigned from the business, which is a shame. I love that guy. He's a fantastic guy, but he's stepped back. But I couldn't think of a better person than Martin to step in. And I think a lot of our advisors that he's been working with over the past 3-4 months have recognized the strength that he brings to the company. So he's a massive addition to us and very timely indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us all that update, Jason. Of course, another big thing that you announced today was your dividend policy. And I think in all my time being around before we even did Stockbox and private investors, I don't think I ever saw a junior miner release a dividend policy. So the cynic in me says, well, is it just all, big headlines? But from you, I don't think that's the case, is it? It's very serious. You want to return value.
Look, I think it's driven by the case. We've obviously done our numbers internally on Blesberg, and what's driving it is very much Blesberg. Let's be honest. Blesberg will be producing at these expanded processing rates early in 2024. The costs which we've gone through and which we're getting independently verified, the volumes, the mining rates, etc. We've got all that necessary equipment there. So when we plug in the numbers, when we do the analysis, the sort of cash flow generation that we're getting really puts us in a bit of not puts us in a quandary, but puts us in a great position. With that cash flow, we've got to manage it effectively, properly. So we've put forward a dividend policy that ensures that we obviously maintain a minimum cash balance to ensure the ongoing liquidity of the business. That balance sheet protection, call it that. We've also got our commitments ahead in Tanzania, in South Africa, in Central Africa. But even after taking all of those into consideration, there is a significant forecast cash surplus. And what I want to do is actually build Marula, and not just me, but the management team, the board. What we want to do is build up Marula as something which is you've seen how I interact with shareholders, how we want to build this company properly. We want to be a dividend paying company. I've looked at companies, other mining companies, one in particular, Caledonia Mining. You may follow them, Mark, from your time when you went to Zim, a gold company there in Zimbabwe, which is consistently a junior company, but that has consistently delivered dividends to its shareholders. And it's differentiated itself so well from all the other companies. We need to do that. We need to provide to our shareholders a good dividend return, but also that share price appreciation. And I think as we go into 2024, with what we're projecting, the numbers we're seeing means we've got to manage that cash flow properly. And as a shareholder myself, to be involved in a company that's giving dividends, I think that's a massive sign of where that company wants to be. It's the way to do it. I mean, again, it's going back to kind of the old school way of running companies, isn't it? About giving money back to shareholders from dividends. That's how you build a proper business. You get that support from shareholders, and that's what we want to get. It's not there to grab headlines. I know it would, because clearly there's no other junior companies that have even thought about that, which is really a bad indication or a bad sign of what other CEOs are doing, I'd say. But we have to look to the future. We've got to make sure we build a long-term sustainable business. But even now, we're seeing that Blesberg is going to be a damn good asset, and we've got to use that cash wisely. And we're not short of other opportunities, don't get me wrong, but to give it back to shareholders, I think is due. It's due. You've got to treat shareholders with the respect and give them those sort of returns.
And do you need to get that final offtake agreement signed? Is that coming shortly? Is it, Jason? I know we've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah, we've mentioned shortly. How long's a piece of string? Yeah. No. That's one of the key announcements to get out pre-Christmas.
Okay.
Call it that Christmas present for shareholders. No, we've done all the work. The counterparty that we're dealing with has done all the necessary testing and so on. We will be getting an update out on that. And, it's key, as we've said in our announcements, key terms are being finalized.
Okay.
We're looking at a long-term arrangement for Blesberg, no short-term arrangements. And we're looking at it with a well-established, credible European-based trading group. And we're doing that for all the right strategic reasons. So yes, that's something else to come out before Christmas.
Okay, and I'm getting into free cash flow during 2024. Realistically, when would you want to make that first dividend payment?
As part of the policy, we'll be putting out our half yearlies and our annual accounts. So once those accounts are out, that then allows us to basically make those decisions.
Okay.
So, it's not a gimmick. It's not a headline grabbing announcement. It's one which the board has thought about long and hard. It's something I raised a number of months ago when we actually started getting some of these detailed numbers out of Blesberg.
Okay.
Blesberg's fully funded. Okay, so we're in a position now where equipment is arriving and basically being commissioned. You've got stockpiles ready to go through. You've got all the mining equipment necessary for it. So with that in mind, that cash generation, you can't just let it sit on your balance sheet. You've got to put it to good use. We've got the projects, great. And perhaps we should be thinking of bigger projects. I'm not sure, but let's focus on what I think we're good at. And getting good at rewarding shareholders is something I'd like to see us get a reputation for in the market very quickly.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the very comprehensive update, Jason Brewer, CEO of Marula Mining.
Mark, many thanks as always.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.